Hey, welcome to this episode of UMBC's Mic'd Up podcast. I'm Denise Cardona from the Office of Professional Programs here at UMBC, and I am joined by Annie Byrd, a graduate in 2023 of the Community Leadership Graduate Program. Annie, it's so great to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, Denise, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. So if we could have you tell us a little bit about your path, like what inspired you to pursue the Community Leadership Graduate Program here at UMBC?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll go back in time a little bit. I started working in the Office of Equity and Inclusion around 2019. And I really got firsthand exposure to UMBC trying to develop better understanding of social justice and the role that higher education plays in that. And so I think that really inspired me to want to further my education in this field, and then also to use my tuition remission benefit that UMBC offered. So I started actually in gender women's studies classes where I really unlearned a lot of white supremacy culture, a lot of social justice things. And from there, I actually connected with a student in my gender women's studies classes who was like, you got to try community leadership. And I was like, I looked into it and I was like, wow, this is really for me. I was just really inspired and moved to promote social justice in my area of influence, I guess. So it was really an evolution to find community leadership actually. But once I was there, I was like, I'm in. So
I love how you use the term unlearn, because that is such a powerful term. I also graduated in 2023 from Learning and Performance Technology here at UMBC. And that's one of the things that I learned. The biggest lesson I learned from that was unlearning what we already have learned in life so that we can learn other things and grow as human beings. I really like how you put that.
Yeah. Yep. It really makes space for other people's experiences and a world that's different than I grew up in. So it was a very awesome experience.
How would you describe community leadership in your own words?
Yeah, community leadership, I think, is really about generating transformative social change and doing it in partnership with people whose lived experiences are directly affected by social injustice. One of the really cool things about community leadership is that it elevates the voices of folks who maybe haven't really historically been at the table or who have been marginalized, and helps to bring to light real system inequities. And it helps, I think community leadership also allows you to find the space where you can contribute to that, the things that you're really passionate about. So it's partnering with people in the community and bringing your gifts and talents and connecting them with those folks and being able to really make some change.
It's a very powerful statement. A follow-up to that is, how do you think leadership shows up in everyday life? So not just in titles or roles.
Yeah, for sure. So I think leadership is, I don't think it's what people sometimes typically think of as the stereotypical leader. I think we have to make choices in our lives every day that either lead people closer to being their best selves, or sometimes we have to struggle with leadership. So I think it's really about collaborating with folks and seeing that each person really has the potential to lead in whatever kind of sphere of influence they are in.
I love that. One time I had a position at UMBC. I've been with UMBC since 2007, and I've had many different roles, wore many different hats. And one of the things, I had a really great conversation with somebody in, I would say, upper management about leadership. And although at the time I did not have a title that encompassed leadership per se, we talked about how leadership is not about a title. It is about how you do, like you said, show up in the world. And it can be leading processes, but also leading people in a sphere of influence. And it can be somebody who is a student who has that leadership role. It has nothing to do with title. It has to do with how you show up in the world and the value that you bring into any kind of a situation.
Yeah, and I like to that point, I think community leadership helps, like the program helps you to see where you can just naturally step into that. And it's not a pain point, right? So like they help you to see like where you're already contributing as a leader and then develop that quality.
That's very cool. Now, graduate studies, as we know, it takes a lot of commitment. What made UMBC's community leadership program the right next step for you?
That is a really great question. I think partially I am like a lifelong learner, so I love to learn new things. I love to try new things. And I had been dabbling in classes here and there at UMBC, but I never really felt like I was finding like a good fit for me in terms of what I wanted to do, like maybe for my master's. But then when I found community leadership, I was like, yep, this is it. I'm ready to jump in and take the plunge, so to speak. And I think one of the things that's really important about community leadership is that, one, the classes are really skills based. And so for me, that seemed very approachable. Okay, I'm going to gain real life skills, not just theoretical, abstract, academia kind of things. So I really was, as a adult learner, I'm in my early 40s. So I had done my undergrad and all that kind of stuff. And I really wanted to kind of add to my skills. And so that was one thing that community leadership really brings to the table. The other thing is that community leadership, the program is, in a way, can be self-directed. So you can align what you're already interested in terms of social justice or community. So you can align your pathway, your academic pathway, with the things you're already interested in. And so for me, I was already really interested in maternal health equity. And it's always been really something that's especially important to me because I am a trained and certified birth doula. And I wanted to connect that part of my life to facing that inequity to improve Black maternal health in Baltimore. So it was really a very cool connection between skills, my interests, and my background. And I think that's really what drew me to the community leadership program.
Sounds like a perfect fit.
It was. It is.
Can you share a memorable moment or experience, a project from your time in the program that really left a mark on you?
Yeah, I think I don't have one of those like moments. I think the most impactful part of the community leadership program for me was just the relationships that I built during the classes. So whether it was with my actual classmates that was going through the same program as me or with my community members, it's really the people that make any sort of, I guess, program meaningful. And so I was not expecting to make such like really meaningful connections. I think when you're an undergrad student, maybe you're just trying to get your degree, and the relationships really made a lasting impact. The other thing that's more like experiential as well is that this program really helps you to get to know Baltimore in a way I never knew it before. So we would take tours around Baltimore. We'd visit like members of the community and hear their experiences of what it's like to live in a place that sometimes is really difficult. And that really helped me to internalize the importance of community, the community process of making change.
Absolutely. Right there in the heart of Baltimore.
Exactly.
Now, as you look toward the future, how do you see this program shaping your professional journey, especially as leadership and technology continue to evolve as we see?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I will say that this program has already shaped my professional journey just through my partnerships that I made during my capstone project. we have the group of us that have been working on this for a couple of years. We have formed the first funded doula advocacy group in Maryland, which is really awesome. And so for the past 3 years, my community partners and I have worked really hard to advocate for higher reimbursement rates for doulas through the Medicaid program. And we're really working to create better access for Medicaid beneficiaries too. We're working like ultimately for the goal is to reduce the maternal mortality disparities for Black birthing people in Maryland through greater access to doulas. And so I guess as things are changing and technology and leadership, I think that we need to just keep centering voices of those folks in the community that are particularly affected. And so continuing to raise up leaders to be able to share their experience to make change. And I think also we've already seen like within the Doula Alliance of Maryland, just us being able to like leverage technology to be able to, I guess, to be able to meet with more groups at a time and to have a greater impact. And so we've already seen great strides in partnering with other leaders in the space and making new connections. And then we just continue to hope to advocate for doulas and their clients, really.
Yes, that's very powerful. What is the name of the organization that you work with for this?
Yes. Yeah. So a few of us, I think there's 4 members right now. It's called the Doula Alliance of Maryland, and it's the first funded doula advocacy group in Maryland. And we've been doing this work for 3 years. It truly is grassroots. It's just 4 or 5 of us got together and we're like, we're all doing these separate things in these silos. Let's come together and have like more voice. And really, we're all doulas. So it's for doulas by doulas. And so we really understand the doula experience, and we really want to create more opportunities for doulas to A, access Medicaid funds, and B, for doulas to get connected with Black birthing people in particular, because we know those maternal mortality disparities are so high for that group of folks.
When you were in the program, did you take the grassroots advocacy class?
Yes, I did. I took so many skills class. I took the grassroots advocacy course. I also took I think it's called community organizing. And so those 2 courses were like directly connected and to basically how we formed the Doula Alliance of Maryland. Like I said before, the really great thing about community leadership is those skills classes, like tangible skills that you take away. And those 2 courses in particular had a great impact on the formation of the Doula Alliance of Maryland.
That's great. Now, every graduate journey has its surprises, right? What has been something unexpected about yours?
I did not expect this to continue past my capstone project. I really thought maybe a part of my capstone project was to create a recommendation report in conjunction with my partner for the Maryland Health Department, just outlining what we recommend for improving the Medicaid program for doulas. And through that, we just really kept in contact and we kept building our network, and it's snowballed from there. And we were all just doing it as our like side passion, our heart passion. We weren't getting paid. And I really also then didn't expect for our group to be funded. And then I have a little side hustle that I'm doing what I love, but I'm getting, it's not a ton of money, but it helps to keep that going. Yeah. And then just those long lasting relationships. I will say it was pretty, at the beginning of my capstone, pretty hard to like get connected with my partner. But then once we connected, we've been friends we've been friends. We both work on the Doula Alliance of Maryland. And then we just like each other and we hang out. And so I think that's been the most unexpected thing, that it just continued and grew into something really meaningful for Maryland.
Those capstone experiences, I had a similar thing happen to me, and it springboarded into a side hustle, I call it, a consultant business on the side, to be able to then put all the skills I learned through the program and the curriculum and then the capstone, and then it was a surprise. Like you said, it's not something you set out to do, but it's just something that evolved from all the knowledge and the great experience of that applied type of environment that our programs thrive in, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, for those who are weighing a decision to go back to school, because it is a very big decision, what kind of personal or professional value have you gained from this experience?
So I always advocate for the community leadership program, especially to my colleagues at UMBC who are potentially thinking about getting their master's degree as maybe part of a benefit of working at UMBC. I'm like, let me tell you about community leadership. And so what I tell them is that it really allows you to curate a path that is aligned with your passions, but also has community impact. So you can do something that you love, but for good. And so that is one thing I would say to folks. So do something you love and get your master's at the same time. Do good. And the second thing I'll say is it's really helpful in developing those tangible skills. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about community organizing and grassroots community advocacy. I also took classes like grant writing, restorative practices, things that I wouldn't normally have access to in, I guess, my regular life. I added those skills. And I actually work really closely with one of the professors for the grant writing class, and she has me on a grant writing contract. So you just never know how those connections are going to affect your future. And I guess that leads to my next point, which is it really helped me to build my network. I made a connection for the Doula Alliance of Maryland. I made many connections for that. And then I also was able to really hone my skills as a grant writer and build my network that way. And ultimately, I got paid to do something that I really care about. I know that's not for everybody, but for me, that was a very unexpected benefit of having my stable job at UMBC and then also being able to do some of these really interesting, good projects on the side.
Yeah. And this is a side comment, really, is AI, right? It's like the big elephant in the room when it comes to people making decisions about their future and what they want to contribute to the world. And it's a concern for some. But I would say, I'm going to guess here, but community leadership, you have to be physically involved in the community. It's very difficult to have an AI robot take over what you're doing.
Yeah, 100%. I would say for this master's program in particular, it's really about relationships. It's about connecting with communities. It's about connecting with leaders. And yes, AI can't do that. Now, we can certainly leverage AI technologies to help us do our work better. There's definitely times where I'm using AI to help me do some brainstorming or help me think outside of the box about this leadership challenge. So it can certainly help you, but it will not take the place of that human one-to-one connection that really is embedded in community leadership.
That's great. Great way to explain it. What kind of ripple effect would you like your work to create?
Wow. Ripple effect. Yeah. I think ultimately there's a lot of things that the Doula Alliance of Maryland is doing and a lot of things that has come out of my community leadership program. But I think ultimately we want to really have an impact on Black maternal health. Just frankly, Black families, Black birthing people are over 2.5 times more likely to die from birth-related complications. And there is a solution. And a lot of these disparities are rooted in systems of inequity. If any of our work, that's what our ultimate goal is, I guess, to say. Our work is, yes, to improve the experience of doulas and increase their funding and things like that. But ultimately, we want to have we want to have equity in birth outcomes for all races. And so that's something that we're really focused on. And so I guess that would be the hope of the ripples, right? One day we can see how that doula connection that we advocated for is improving the lives of Black families.
Yeah. Now, if somebody came to you considering the Community Leadership Graduate Program at UMBC, what would you tell them? In other words, what's maybe one thing you wish you had known before starting? Or how can they best get the most out of their UMBC experience?
Yeah, I would say, I'd say go for it. If you're considering it, maybe start with a skills course and dip your toe in that way. But you will gain hands-on experience. Like, it's not just going to be in the clouds, higher theoretical thinking. You'll gain tangible skills. You will gain relationships that really stand the test of time. And you will be able to do it with a group of professors and directors and just staff and faculty who care about what you care about and help you along the way, so you don't feel like you're alone. And you really are able to have you're able to make concrete change in the community in Baltimore. So I guess that's what I would say. Go for it. You'll be supported. You'll gain skills, and you'll build relationships that will really last.
Wonderful, positive way to close out this episode. Thank you very much for saying that. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of UMBC's Mic'd Up podcast. If you'd like to learn more about our offerings, look at the show notes. There's a link in the description. Thank you so much.